I liked Patterson a lot when I first saw it, and my admiration for it has only grown over time. It's a really quiet, low-key film that absolutely sticks with you, thanks largely to how endearing the central character is. He's brilliantly played by Adam Driver. It's a very unflashy performance in a very unflashy film, and it's just perfect. The film is directed by Jim Jarmusch, who I think can be a bit hit and miss. His movies tend to have a very oddball, esoteric sensibility that I don't always connect with. But there's an earnestness and a complete lack of cynicism here that's hard not to be enchanted by. Also, I think we can all agree that that bulldog is the best. Windriver is a really striking thriller from Taylor Sheridan, who wrote Sicario and Hell or High Water, and who also steps behind the camera here. He does a really great job of making the film's ultra-remote Alaskan town feel real and lived in, but where he really shines is in his memorable dialogue, with the film's most powerful moments being scenes where two characters just talk. Of course, in this regard, it helps that he's populated the movie with a bunch of amazing actors. Most notably, Windriver features a shockingly great performance from Jeremy Renner. The man has been a complete non-entity in stuff like the Marvel films and the ill-advised Bornless Born movie, but he's absolutely electrifying here, giving a magnetic performance that has all of the charisma he was lacking in the aforementioned films. I know, an alien knockoff B-movie seems like an odd contender for a best of the year list, but Life is so skillfully made. It's a lean, mean horror movie without even an ounce of fat on its delightfully spare 104-minute running time. Director Daniel Espinosa paces the film like a pro, with just enough setup to let us get to know the characters. They're all fairly thin, but the film gives us just enough to make them feel distinct and for us to care about them, though the charismatic cast does a lot of the heavy lifting in this regard. And once the creature is amok, the movie is pretty much one riveting, well-constructed set piece after another. It's tense, suspenseful, and surprisingly brutal. It's odd to say it, but Life is a much, much better Alien movie than the actual Alien movie that came out this year. You'd be forgiven for not even realizing that Tramps exists. It's one of the many films that Netflix acquired and then just dumped onto its service with zero fanfare. It's a romantic comedy that recalls a time when the genre still had greatness in it, when you'd frequently get films from legendary directors like Frank Capra, Preston Sturges, and Howard Hawks. Director Adam Leon imbues the film with an irresistibly peppy sense of energy, and stars Callum Turner and Grace Van Patten have a palpable, delightful chemistry. Tramps is especially impressive in that it manages to feel fresh while still doing literally everything you'd expect from the rom-com. That feat alone deserves kudos, but the film is all around really solid. The pacing, particularly, manages to maintain a fairly madcap sense of energy without ever feeling manic or overwhelming. Dunkirk is kinda odd. It's a film I have distinct issues with, and yet I can't stop watching it. I've seen it 4 times theatrically, and if it were still playing, I'd probably go see it again. Its raw cinematic power and unyielding intensity are kinda breathtaking, especially in IMAX. Between Christopher Nolan's direction and Hans Zimmer's heart-pounding, electrifying score, the film has a level of intensity that's uncomparable. And yet, I hate to say this because I love it when movies try to do something different, but I kinda wish that Dunkirk were a little bit more conventional. I miss the scenes where one of the characters talks about the girl waiting for him back home, or going to join his uncle's auto repair shop, or any number of things that are kinda cliches, but also present in pretty much every war movie for a reason. I appreciate what Nolan was trying to do here, but I also wish he had given us a few characters to root for. This is only Sean Byrne's second film after The Loved Ones, and like that movie, The Devil's Candy struggled to find distribution and eventually wound up with a tiny theatrical release, essentially going straight to VOD. It's a damn shame because with these 2 films, Byrne has established himself as a very strong voice in horror cinema, but his movies are so under the radar that no one seems to realize it. Byrne does a really great job here of building a creepy, slow burn intensity that eventually comes to a head in an amazingly tense finale. But he never forgets about the characters, giving us a group of people who feel like a real family with real chemistry. The Devil's Candy is especially impressive in that it manages to take the very well-worn family man gets influenced by demonic forces trope and does something with it that feels so new and fresh. John Wick Chapter 2 is a perfect sequel. It strikes just the right balance between giving us more of what we loved from the first one while being fresh and new enough that it never feels like a rehash. It also does a pretty amazing job of expanding on the compelling world of assassins that helped make the first film as memorable as it was. And man, the action here. Aside from the expected gun-fu awesomeness, there are a couple of really brutal, flat-out awesome hand-to-hand scenes, and a Lady from Shanghai-esque set piece in a House of Mirrors that's easily the most visually inventive fight scene I've seen in a long, long time. There's just so many set pieces here that made me giddy from how exciting and inventive they were. This level of action choreography combined with direction this good is not something that we see very often. It's spectacular. The Breadwinner is a movie that, with its topical narrative that involves the way women are treated in Afghanistan, seems like it could very easily be preachy or heavy-handed, or at the very least, one-note grim. But there's a real warmth here that's absolutely irresistible. The characters are all so endearing, and Nora Twomey's direction is perfect. She does a great job of balancing the low-key first half with the more eventful second half. Twomey almost seems to be trying to make her own job harder, as a good chunk of the movie is dedicated to a story being told by one of the characters, which is animated in a completely different style. This is a choice that very easily could have sapped the film of its momentum, but it absolutely works. The film eventually intercuts between both stories in a finale that's as riveting as it is emotional, and that cements The Breadwinner as one of the best animated films to come out in years. A grimy, intense, and hypnotically violent prison film, Brawl in Cell Block 99 is an amazing 70s throwback that, if nothing else, cements Vince Vaughn as a national treasure. It's a pretty spectacular film, though between the deliberate pacing and the horrific violence, it's safe to say that it's not for everybody. It's only S. Craig Zoller's second movie, but he doesn't strike a single wrong note. His direction is stylish without being flashy, and the pacing is unhurried without ever feeling slow. It feels just right. Watching Vince Vaughn's character delve deeper and deeper into his horrific prison odyssey is absolutely entrancing. After this and True Detective, it's abundantly clear that Vaughn is surprisingly great at delivering terse, hard-boiled, tough guy dialogue. He gives a remarkable, magnetic performance. You can't take your eyes off of him. Baby Driver is an exhilarating, flat-out amazing film that manages to take a potentially gimmicky conceit, that the main character is always listening to music that underscores every scene of the film, and that does something really special with it. Last year's Suicide Squad is a great example of what happens when you carelessly cram too many songs into a film, but Baby Driver is the exact opposite of that. The movie is built from the ground up to match every song in a way that's flat-out magical. You'd think that this might make the action feel fussy or overly composed, but the car chases here are as balls-to-the-wall thrilling as anything I've ever seen, not to mention a foot chase that ranks among the best ever. With action this amazing, I'd be perfectly fine to excuse mediocre plotting and characterization, but this being an Edgar Wright film, the characters are as memorable as the action. But seriously, I can't heap enough praise onto Wright's direction. Every time I watch this movie, I notice something new about the way he directs action, or transition between scenes, or, of course, the almost supernaturally brilliant way that he uses music. I was already a big fan, but as far as I'm concerned, this easily puts him among the greats. And now, without comment, here's my bottom 10, set to a trombone, baritone, and sousaphone rendition of the theme from Rocky.